All right, we were talking about business. Now we're talking about business, boys. Hello.
Rich.
How are y'all doing today?
Rich.
If we were in the room with you, we'd be throwing water bottles all over you.
Oh man, goggles, champagne. I think that would we should do that. When the
Wait,
first
we have a
time
world
Rich took
champ
care
in
of
the house.
business.
Wait. Jack.
For my announcing.
Way to go, Rich.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just realized this is actually going to be going live. That did not mean to do that, but we're live. We're live right now, so that's something. That's an interesting wrinkle here. I'm all out of sorts. I'm out of my regular element. I'm still on the East Coast, but
Post-championship hangover.
dude, I've like not been able to really have time to soak it all in. I do feel kind of wacky. I haven't trained really at all, so I that's a lot of time where I kind of process things. So I'm still kind of figuring out like how I'm feeling, but in general, it's good.
Well, no, let's elaborate. Give us 30 seconds of your best effort at how you're feeling right now.
Well, I'm definitely proud of myself. That was one thing I did realize. I was like, okay, I do this to like feel this pride into when push comes to shove, if I'm able to do it and will I do it, right? Like, so I'm definitely happy, and I don't throw that word around, and I don't always feel that about myself in terms of like my athletic performance. Very rare. So that's really interesting. I know. Like, why would I train if I did? You know?
No, I'm saying, nor should you feel very proud.
Exactly.
Proud about what you've done in this room.
You've historically, I felt like you usually leave things on the table, and you know you're capable of better. So this has to be very vindicating.
It's a little bit like that, right? It's like, was there something wrong with my mental side of things in terms of the performance that I was showing out, right? Or did your things just not align yet? And I was always kind of in between that. So this was very validating, like you said, Kirk, to be like, all right, like I can fucking do it. So I'm feeling pretty good.
You should.
I must say.
Now,
So,
I don't know
I
how
was bummed
deep
you
we're
weren't
going to
in
get
the
into
mile.
The mile would have been really fun, but like those boys needed space. Rylan and Kent, they just needed to have it out mano a mano. I would have just been annoying to deal with for them, but they needed to have their time to do it. You know,
You and I said something a while back, months ago, and that was the concept of you weaponizing your running. That you can do everything else, and you're good at everything else, and everyone else is good at everything else. But the one clear leg up you have on everyone in the field is your running, and you hadn't weaponized that in almost a year. And when I watched the race, even the mile, which you didn't win, you were clearly the best runner every step of the course. Even running, even strong. Sorry, not mile, strong. Running from into the sled station. You weaponized that like 20-meter transition. You were significantly faster than everyone the whole way. And I don't know if you guys went and looked at splits, but Rich was you were minimum 20 seconds faster than everyone else's 5K during Dekafit. Like it was the biggest gap on any station other than I think Assault Bike was you running.
Yeah, and that's one thing with Deka in general. Is like how well is a 5K going to translate into the course performance? And I think it correlates pretty well. I mean, not if you have like a 15-minute Deka strong, then your 15-minute 5K probably won't matter as much. But having it come up and having my station stay better, actually getting much better, was a really good feeling too. So yeah, you were right on that.
Slower running at championships. From what I could see, no one had their 5K PR split during the championships, but you got faster. So not only did your stations improve, you were able to weaponize your running on top of stations. And that was like, that's the whole race.
That was one thing that I thought that was interesting. Jack did, and I think Yancey said some people came up and asked if the course was slow. The women's times were not slow, but the men's times weren't as impressive as they were in West Palm.
Yeah. I actually was, before we hopped on this call, I was rushing to try to scramble to do stuff. 7 men were slower, 4 were faster. I could fit. got through Deka mile on the men's side. On the men's side, 8 were slower, 3 were faster. I didn't have a chance to do the rest, or for the women, just because it ran out of time. But definitely, most people were. It's looking like 3 to 4% slower on average.
Rich, what was your 5K time?
It was 16:59, and that was there was guys that ran faster. Like Mark ran faster than that. Rylan ran
Not by
about
much.
that. Not by
No,
much.
Rylan was like 17:25 or something.
In West Palm,
Palm.
he was right
in
around,
West Palm, yeah.
Okay.
And
Dade
and,
Collins was
Dade-
around 16:50.
yeah, I thought he slipped under. I thought he was 16:40 something. I came into this
Maybe.
thinking 16:30 was on the table. So
Hmm.
I don't know I don't check my splits. I don't know exactly what that would feel like, but that's what I came in thinking. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I guess that's all. It's all it really took.
There were some slow transitions getting out of. I'm trying to think of what it was. One, you had to run backwards and then get back on the course. I hadn't seen that in other decas. Was that off of the? What would that have been?
Maybe
Third station, maybe. Sit-ups.
Sit-ups. The sit-ups has been open at a different spot before, like in West Palm. Like it's on a corner.
Yeah.
And on West Palm, the opening was closer to the run
Onto
course.
the course.
We
This
had
one
to make
you-
that extra turn. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that may have been a little slower, but I don't know. It just seems maybe that was just the race, right? The guy, and one thing that this race didn't have that West Palm had was Mark Gaudette kind of in that middle. Like he would lose time on the stations and would come out running like a maniac. So I think he was dragging that mid pack with him into the stations, and there wasn't anybody in that middle who was being super aggressive that way. It
They
kind
were
of
all
split.
the same.
It kind of split up where Magida kind of
Magida was in
separated.
no man's land.
I know, and then it was Woolley, Anas, Riker was kind of hanging in that group.
And one would move
Dylan.
up past them out of the station. There'd be like 2 or 3. One would come up and then they'd finish together.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the Gaudette thing, but no one was running as fast as him. They settled down to each other rather than taking it up another notch.
Was it fun to watch?
So I just got off the assault bike before this, and I watched both the men's and women races like a half hour ago. You said something interesting in your interview at the end, saying like you came into the sit-ups and you're like, I almost felt too good at that point. And you're how far in? Maybe like 7 minutes into the race. I don't know how far that would be in there. 7 to 10 minutes into the race up.
Yeah.
Somewhere about there.
Sounds full.
And I thought
probably closer to 10.
Yeah. But the curiosity is like we all dream of showing up on race day and putting it together and having the day where you're 5-10 minutes into the race, you're going, oh, today's going to be a good day. Like, and that doesn't happen every time. And so your stars aligned, your mind met your body, met your training, and you showed up. And not only did you feel good, then you sunk your teeth into feeling good and put out, as I call it. Like, what do you think the key was for you? Because you got to put them all together to win. Like you do, unless you're such a favorite that you can have a bad day and win like Hunter in his initial High Rocks days. That's not you. Maybe it will be in the future, but like, what do you think it was? Like if you had to bullet point why it came together on race day, of course we can talk about years and years of training, but like talk about the lead in like the few weeks. That's what it's the first question I wanted to know is like, how did you nail the lead in?
Yeah, training aside, right? Because it's a whole conversation. And then we were talking about just before we came on. It's like there's a million ways to do this. Like I was probably doing it a way that nobody else was doing, and that definitely helped. But I try to just periodize my life in a similar way too when it comes to how like aggressive I'm going to be toward this goal. So like cut out drinking. Leading into the race itself, I cut out like sugar for a week, like refined sugar. Just I have like a bad response sometimes to it, just like an inflammatory response. It goes away, but I just felt right, and I felt calm, and I felt confident. I didn't need to do anybody else's race. I felt fast enough that I could make up ground, and I think, and another thing we were just talking about too, like it was kind of helpful that Kent and Rylan were just ready to rip each other's throats out. And I was coming in as a 7 seed. On paper, this looks like a big upset, and I should be nominated for upset for Okra.
You should
mark that shit down. But then, so like there wasn't a ton of pressure on. Like I put pressure on myself a little bit on that, but it wasn't like my race to lose. If I ran the right race, I could grab it and take it, and it's kind of what happened. So
That's a good answer, because I had this conversation on the Running Public with you, Bracken, a few times about like my running has gotten notably better. Like, I'm very fit and fast right now, and I'm doing really nothing different training wise than I was doing before, other than I changed everything other than my training. How my lifestyle is, how I'm eating, drinking, sleeping, the other things that people like brush under the rug. You're doing like a lifestyle taper, meaning like you're doing all the little things, all that extra percent, and they add up.
Mhm.
And so like, I think that's just really good for people to hear, because I noticed the exact same thing. Like, those little things do make a difference. Like, we're all training hard, we're all tapering in, we're all doing a version of what we think is best. So like, where's that extra percent that you can grab? Little things like that. It's just interesting.
Yeah, and the training, because it went so well, it's hard to get like an 8, 10, 12 week lead up to not have anything go wrong. Like, I only had just like life stress, like rip me down for maybe like a week or like 10 days where I felt just terrible, but I wasn't hurt. I wasn't sick. And because it went so well, I was so confident that I was sleeping really well. Like, leading into the race, I slept well all week. I slept well the night before. It did just all kind of align. And just being confident in the training helped all the rest, I think.
Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a conversation. It was about tapering.
Mhm.
And we went over 2 or 3 different styles of how you could taper based off the style of training you had been doing. And at the very end of it, like the mentality just switched to like, screw it. I'm going to do what's worked for me. I'm going to sharpen, not so crazy sharp. I'm not going to back off so crazy much. I'm just going to take a middle of the road taper approach, because I'm confident that I can perform off that. That was like the words that came out of his mouth. I know I can do this based off this. Could I maybe grab an extra percent or two by doing this or by doing that? Yeah, maybe overreaching or underreaching, but I'm just going to stick middle of the road. And I had this little pit in my stomach watching the race as station 2 and 3 went by, and there's a gap. I'm like, oh my goodness, does he feel heavy today? Like, did this conversation go the wrong way? And then station 4, station 5, suddenly you just realize he's rolling. Like, we didn't get in our own way. You didn't get in your own way. You put the work in and you didn't screw it up with the taper, and you listened to what you knew to be true. In the midst of trying new things, you stuck with like what you knew were your meat and potatoes, and it worked. I was so relieved for you.
And you're relieved for the conversation we had. I was probably running through my head, fucking Bracken should have told me to taper better. This is his fault.
I mean, I didn't coach you. You did your thing, but like, that conversation was very specific to tapering. That was almost all we talked about, and you got it right.
And it's kind of weird. Like, I've been thinking about that because like there is a lot of literature around tapering, right? It's like, do this, drop this, or there's like a couple different ways to do it. But like, does it really matter? Just like, don't fuck it up. Don't do something stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Just do what has worked, kind of. Maybe just do a little less. Don't do new stuff.
Yeah. And a 30-minute race is too long to need to be too sharp. Like, it's better to arrive with the fitness you've had in your workouts than to arrive a little different and it not be right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Jack, I was going to say, Jack, we can't forget about Jack. We have a Dekafit sandwich on our hands here. We got both pieces of bread in the field here.
I think we can keep talking about Rich, but
no, I want to hear, man. I didn't. Yeah. You know, I never watched your.
Well, I just wanted to add one thing on Rich.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add one thing on Rich before we move on from him, because Kirk, you were saying that he kind of optimized everything outside of training so that his training was perfect and stuff, and he didn't have any of those outside stresses weighing him down. I think the other thing that Rich did is he didn't mess around with other stuff besides this. He was doing solely hybrid, and look who came out on top in a lot of these events. You had Tara Jackson with 2 wins on the women's side, Alondra Greenlee second place on everything. Ryland didn't podium everything. Like, he came in with two records, 2 first seeds by a good margin heading into it, but he's been messing around with Grease trifecta. You saw Chris Rogloski coming in, a lot of potential, but she decided to run World's Toughest Mudder the week before. And the people who went all in on this one style, it paid off for him. And Rich, I can't think of anybody besides Ryan Kent or maybe Tara Jackson at this point who was like, I am a Deka or a Hyrox athlete, and the results spoke for themselves.
Ryland seemed tired. Yeah. You know, he just didn't have that pop. Like in West Palm, he had like pop in every station, every run. It's like, oh man, this dude is aggressive, fast, strong, like scary. but he didn't. It didn't seem like he had that like next level that he might have typically had.
Rent always comes due, and it even comes due for Chris Rogloski. And maybe we don't see it in her in between days after her hundreds, and then she does a Spartan National Series race. Like her rent comes due, maybe not on race day, but she figured out a way to make her rent come due in between races, right? Her bad days aren't on race day; they're the days in between as she's recovering. But like eventually, like rent comes due, and I think that's just like to go and take third place, right? As Rylan off of his season is like still mind blowing. The fact Chris Rogloski showed up and had a stride that could even open up, let alone the range of motion to get over the box in relative speed for her. Like, my God, it's pretty impressive. But no, Jack, we don't want to leave you out of this. We can't, you're the redheaded guy, but you're not like the redheaded stepchild here. You made the Dekafit world champs. And I'm very glad, I don't mean to be like taking over this conversation or guiding it, but one, I'm very glad to see Chris Woolley showed up, because can it be a world championship if it's only Americans? The answer is absolutely not. So thank you. So thank you, Chris, for showing up and making this a true world championship. Anas. Yes, we had two, I guess.
He lives domestically, though.
He lives domestically.
From Paris. So that's 3 continents represented.
Nice.
In the elite field.
You can't take away from your world championship, Rich, because it truly was international.
At worst, you're the tri-continental champion.
That's what's going in the Instagram profile right
now. Were all
now.
the women from the U.S.?
I believe so. They've had 2 or 3 international events now, Jack. They've had Spain.
Is Camilla Massa?
Yeah, Tenerife, Malaysia.
Camilla lives in
race. I think but where is she from originally?
I think Italy. But yeah, she wasn't at Deka though.
She wasn't at the.
So we have a Dekafit men's world champ and a Dekafit women's national champ. Is that what we have? You're the big boy. You're the man on top.
That's it.
Let's talk about that bottom slice of bread, Jack. How did it go for you, man?
I'm the end.
You're that end piece that everybody tosses out.
I woke up. Sorry, what?
You're that end piece of bread
anyway,
that everybody throws away. You must have a delay.
God, some people like it, others don't. But yeah, I woke up a really good lead in, feeling pretty confident, and then during my warm up, I didn't feel too great. But I know you guys have talked several times in your podcast. It's like a warm up is a complete lie. Sometimes you're gonna have the race of your life if you have a bad day, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go through the motions, just do the warm up I've always done that I've been doing through this training cycle, and figured my legs would just wake up at some point. And once the adrenaline kicks in of the venue, like Chris Woolley, I warmed up at the hotel because it was like quieter. We didn't want our adrenaline going through the roof, just watching all these other people competing beforehand. So we showed up at like 11:45 or something, already having a sweat, getting ready to go. And then, just did a couple strides, did a couple, once we got to set up our bike seats, because everyone was able to, did a couple, 5-second bursts on there. And I'm like, man, I'm just not feeling like my legs are popping today. And on lap 1, so the opening 250, Rich, what would you say? We went out at like 5 flat pace or so. It was
ridiculous. Way too fast.
I
think, Derek York pulled a Derek York, basically.
Derek won that race for you, Rich. Outside of you, Derek was your right-hand man.
That's my guy right there. And he went out and maybe this is just experience for Ryland's sake, but like, that's just what he does. And Ryland went, got
Ryland's
in front
a lead
of him.
dog.
He didn't want and I think he wanted to run a really, really fast time, so Derek York.
But anyway,
dude,
I would say York was probably like 4:30, 4:40 pace at that point, which was a little foolish at the beginning. And Dylan Scott and I think we came in like 1:32, 1:33. So it was only like 5 flat pace, which for an opening 500 when you haven't done anything else, for anyone who makes this top 12, that's not that fast. And I felt like I was down. I looked down and my heart rate was like 170, 2 minutes into the race on an opening 500. I just didn't have anything. And the rest of it, like I got out of lunges.
Were you worried? Just to cut in. Were you worried about the lunges? Because the lunges were a disaster last time.
And then I looked at the video and I'm like, wow, I look like I'm in halftime right now.
You were standing all the way up.
Yeah. Well, I got 10 no reps in Palm Beach. I'm like, what was I doing wrong there? Let's
the judge just miscounted, I think, is what happened.
That's basically what happened. But that was in the back of my mind, and I'm like, whatever. I'm just gonna, even if I get out a little little behind. I'll put in a little bit of a surge in the rower, gain a couple seconds back, row like a 142, 143, and I was like 146, 147, which is just not acceptable at that point. And then the box jumps in the past I've usually done like 10 of those TMX style and then gone into the single step overs. But those quick little TMX ones where you just hop over 2 feet at the beginning, that gets you back a few seconds. And I figured by the time I was out of the box jump overs, I'd be with at Killian and whoever was trailing on the back, and then make my way up in the second half like I did before. None of it was just coming together, and the whole race was just a struggle with the pity claps at the back. So just wasn't a good day.
Have you run a championship event before?
Yeah, a few. Yeah,
I mean, like a qualification style championship.
Yeah, I mean, dating back to like track and stuff, I've done that for sure. But OCR, I mean, yeah, usually like I knew Rich, Ryland, Kent, they're just on another level. But I looked at the people in this race. I was like, I should probably, based on the lead in, finish around 7th or 8th. I think that I can pick off someone who went out a little too fast and beat a couple people who speed times are faster, but I think I'm in better shape at the moment. So that was my expectation leading in.
Okay. It's a tough position to be in.
Mm-hmm. You guys ever had the gallery clap in races before? I have 2 distinctly I can think of in that position.
Well, I will say real quick, I did pass Derek York at the sled, and then we battled on that last lap for to get to the burpees, and he threw in a surge there and then ended up passing me. And then like those last 4 or 5 burpees, I was like, why am I here at this point? But I just finished him off because I just had no fight in me or just ability that day. It was really frustrating.
The worst part in the results is that it shows like the top 10 finishers, and it's like show more, and it's just 1 more, and it's you. I'm like, man, just to rub it in a little bit further. So stupid.
What are all your worst sympathy clap moments? I want to hear them.
That was
that yours?
That was rough. When Ryland was already 250 ahead after the box jumps. I was like, this is not good.
I used to run the 400 as a freshman, and usually I'd just be like a 4x4 guy who would get plugged in if our track team was good, and if we were killing teams, I'd go in there and run a 58 or something like that. But there was a couple times where I'd get into, we just didn't have enough athletes to fill. Like there are 2 guys that might score, and then there was just like an open lane, so they just threw in the freshmen. So I'd go out there and run like 59. The dudes are running like 51 and 52 all the way through, and it's just like that looks really bad. So that's where I caught the good job.
It's like a 70-meter gap at that speed. So it looks very large. 6 seconds sounds like nothing, but at that speed, it's a straightaway almost.
You could tell like, oh, that's the worst athlete in this race by a lot.
You gotta have a handful.
Bracken doesn't have any. He's just like, right, what are you talking about here?
I jumped in the last 200 meters of the qualifying to try to go to state at our sectionals in the 1600 meter. My senior year outdoor was the second last track race at high school, and I doubled back from the 4x8 like 21 minutes earlier or something like that.
Oh.
And I fell apart lap 3, and I kicked the first half of lap 4 just to try to stay on the field. And I ran my last 200 in probably like 50 seconds. I just gave up and jogged in. And like anyone who didn't know me pity clapped, and the rest were just dead silent because they knew.
That's when there's no context too. It's like when people are just watching, who are just like there to be encouraging. Yeah. They don't know you ran an 800 and like that you're actually good. They're like, he's trying.
I was the 1 seed.
Oh no.
Yeah. Maybe the 2 seed. Kirk, I think Andrew Voss and I were like a 10th or 2 apart in our seeds heading into that race.
So you didn't qualify for the state.
We'd both run 426 that year, like the week before. And I think 433 was the final qualifying. And I think I walked in 444.
Oof. That's tough when it's a 1-day meet. Our district
I was trying to triple.
Triple into. Did you do the 8?
It was going to be the mile, 2 mile, and I decided to throw the 4x8 in first. So I walked in the mile and scratched the 2 mile.
Oh, jeez.
That's how I ended my high school.
Not a great senior meet.
No.
You get people pissed at you when you do that too, because in quotes, take away a spot for somebody when you scratch at like sectionals or regionals. It's
Yeah.
like somebody else could have been there. I did that one time as a sophomore and I got chewed out hard for it.
By who? This is before social media.
My coach was like,
he wasn't into that.
somebody else could have been taking this. You're backing out. Anyways,
I didn't get any flag.
I got flag for it.
There were like 4 people that could qualified and they all qualified. So,
Right. Yeah. You sub
It
in
was
like
bad.
a 10-22 miler or something like that. Like
that last 200 meters, it felt like I had 3 hours. It was like a long run to question what had gone wrong and what I was doing. I was out there forever. That final 200, a 50-second 200 close is not fast.
not that fast.
Not as fast as you'd want.
Yeah.
Kirk, what's
Kirk,
yours?
what were your moments
Well,
that
Rich and I
stood out to
probably
you?
share one at the inaugural TMX. That was just awful when I was out on the course and I was like all alone and getting time capped.
At least
Like,
that was
I had
away.
my-
I was
my
like far
one-
away.
Well, that's even worse. My one friend that showed up is like there, like can't even cheer me on because we know this is going so bad. He's like, it's okay, man. We just get beers afterwards. I'm like there dying. That was bad. But everybody watching had forgotten about you. Like you're just alone suffering on the far end of the TMX course where nobody's watching you anymore. That sucked. But that
was
wasn't a
bad,
gallery. Yeah.
That was a brutal finish. The overhead lunge walks, you can't coast those.
Yeah. Anyways, I know you experienced that. That's the one I'm thinking about. For me, it was the Notre Dame Invitational in cross country my sophomore year of college. We were sandwiched between Stanford, who was ranked number 1. Because we were national champs in cross country, so we earned the division. They did this fun thing where the national champs can go race with the D1 guys. So we were between Stanford and Notre Dame or in Arkansas. It doesn't matter. Anyways, I had
any of those schools.
I had the worst race. I ran 27:20 for a 5-mile cross race, and I took dead last by like a mile. That race was won in like 23:10, and I was all alone in the back, and it was the worst feeling I've ever had in my entire life.
Oh my god!
Like
Good
when
for
you want
finishing.
when you want to show up, like this is a big race, and I just had the worst day I had in my college career. So that was it for me. And it was just like, and there's so many people in those big D1 cross country course meets. Like there's thousands and thousands of people lining the course, and I'm 30 seconds behind anybody, and they're just looking at me like, "Who's this idiot?" It was,
Oh, that's a D3 team,
and that's a
why-
D3 guy.
That's
of
why they
all
don't.
of it. It was
That's why they don't
horrible.
come.
You come through at like 450, 455 through the mile, and you're 20 yards behind the pack and dying. Like, oh my goodness.
I came through 4 or 55, and I was in dead last with like 10 other guys at the back.
Yeah. 10 other schmucks.
I remember probably my worst one. It was at a dual meet back in college. Do you guys know Riley Masters, the miler? He ran like a 357 or a 356, something like that, when he was at the University of Maine. Well, we had like a dual meet at the University of Maine, and our bus broke down on the way there, and we had to have another bus come find us in the middle of Maine, and then drive us there. And like 4 minutes after, they're like, the steeplechase that's about to start in 4 minutes, and it was so cold. There was ice in the steeplechase pit, and I had no warm up. I just put on my spikes and got on the line, and there were 3 people in the race, and Riley Masters was one of them. And I was like, don't get lapped today, because he already got warmed up. He was at the home. That was his home track, and I remember fighting for everything not to avoid getting lapped, and I held him off at that point. But that last lap, it was just like 4 people just slow clapping as I'm struggling home on the backstretch. That was a bad day.
The worst is when in this race I was referring to is it wasn't slow clapping. It was just silence. Like you're running through thousands of people and it's like you're in a hallway all alone because nobody's like cheering for you. And so that was actually the worst. It was the opposite of a clap. It was silence. But we did beat 2 ranked D1 teams that day. And my team, we took like 4th overall, but I did not. I was the one who did not show up.
That's why you only score. That's why I only score 5.
Thank God.
So, I'm not going to tell the story, but I think the worst pity clap though was Tahoe, where I went at mile 5. I was in 10th, and I finished up 52nd. And I was
people knew you.
In that, do you remember they had a long traverse wall and a long rig at the end, and everyone was failing it. Mm-hmm. And I came through, and everyone was like, "You got it!" And I made it through, and they the crowd erupted. Guys,
oh, that's pretty.
I got it because I walked the last hour. That was the most embarrassing pity clap probably ever.
I'm 40 places at least.
Hunter had cooled down. He had his clothes on, and he was coaching me through the rig. That was bad.
When we're struggling for content, we'll just have to do a race failures episode sometime. Maybe we can. Yeah.
Because let's talk about the women's race on the fit side of things, this was another one that was kind of like we all looked at Lauren Weeks like, oh man, like she's actually a superhuman going into this, the way that she ran in West Palm. And
real quick, Rich, before you move to the women, I just wanted to add one last thing, but I didn't cut you off before. So I just did want to say that, even though the race didn't go well, like the fact that I made the top 12, I am proud of that, because that took work early on. You can't really fake the Dekafit. Like some courses are different. For Deka Strong, you might have quicker transitions, same with the mile and stuff, but if you look at the Olympics, there's Usain Bolt, he's on a different level, and then you have the rest of the people filling the field, but they're still Olympians at the end of the day, for an easy comparison right there. So, even though I didn't have the day that I wanted, I'm still not mad at the effort that it took to get there earlier.
Totally. It's a prestigious event. Like it wasn't an open. Yeah, it wasn't just running Tahoe. Like you didn't get a coin to go to Tahoe and just like whatever. Like you had to be
50 seconds. Yeah.
You're a tricontinental. And no one can take that away from you.
Oh yeah, that's what I get that on a tattoo. But yeah,
correct.
Anyway.
But
anyway, now we can move on. We can move on to the women. I just wanted to mention that on how I felt.
Jack, was Lauren Weeks the clear number one pick to win this in the contest?
I thought by voters, definitely. Yeah. And I personally thought that she's 2 months less post-pregnancy at this point, or farther removed from having a baby. And she just beat everyone a couple months before that, who were her main competitors in Dekafit at Palm Beach. So I was like, how's she going to go backwards? So I was very surprised with the result, to be honest.
Bracken, what was your takeaway from the women's?
I had two. The first is that I don't know Lauren personally. I don't know what her life's like right now, but my guess is her child has entered into the next stage of life, and she has no life energy or time. Like sometimes early on, kids sleep and then they stop. I assume she's still nursing. She just looked tired. She just didn't look like herself. So I'm assuming this is a life, not Lauren. The second takeaway is that no one on this planet is beating Meg Jacoby the rest of this year in anything. That girl is like from Cybertron. She just wrecked people and didn't even get to run her best race.
And like, we'll give Tara her due as well. Like she ran real smart. She put herself in a great position. She gave me shit after because of our episode, Jack. I was like, I don't know if she can run a race. Is that going to win it for her? She came up to me and fucking shoved it in my face right after. And Alondra did too. She's like, oh, so you don't believe in me? I'm like, well, I think you're great. What do you want me to say? But she ran really, really strong. At the Farmers Carry for the women's race, I think there are 5 athletes all together, all at the same time, which was kind of crazy to see.
You didn't see Tara until you needed to. She Rich Ryan that. She executed perfectly. She stayed out of the fray and ran her race. And it was really satisfying to watch that style of race.
She did. And that was what the question was going to be, right? Like, what are these athletes going to do when Lauren goes out like a maniac? Like, how much gap are they able to give up to her? And I think Bridget Brown ran a really good race too from that perspective, because she took those early stations, which she's very skilled at, and was a little bit more aggressive and kind of closed things down. She was like sitting on Lauren early, like going into like right after sit-ups, like she caught completely and was just sitting right behind her, because I think that's just where she felt like she had to be. It wasn't time to make a move, and then pulled the rest of the group with her into the Farmers. So I think she ran a really good gutsy race too, to put herself in that position and take the lead in a world championship race.
Does Lauren Weeks? Now I haven't watched a ton of. I mean, I've seen a number of races with her, but there's people like Rich Ryan who's running fast and you look smooth and relaxed. And then it looked like Lauren was fighting for, even on the first lap, it looked like she was like digging into that pace, right? Like she was working for that pace versus relaxed. Is that her typical look? Like it looks like she's overcooking even when it's going perfectly. It is. Okay. Cause I haven't seen her enough, because the others behind her, like Laura Cummins and whoever else, looked pretty smooth early on. And I was like, she running a 400 or she run a 5K total today? I don't really know. So that's typical. That's just typical Lauren.
She'll do that in a high rock. She'll look that way. Yeah. First lap in a high rock. She's
So got in like
hammered.
310 looking like that.
And I think what I've
Did you
noticed
guys hear?
is people have gotten away, like in a high rocks race where it's 60 minutes. I think getting away and out of sight can kind of almost work better in an hour-long race. But the people who went out like a shot in this 30-minute race, it's a whole different nuance. Like, I don't think you can do it in a 30-minute race, but you could get away with it in a 60-minute race if you're that much better. But I just don't think it plays out right in half the distance. And you would almost think it'd be the opposite of that. Like, oh, you can get away in a shorter race because you can just hang on for dear life. But it doesn't work. Like, the cream always rises to the top in a long race. And if you get away enough, I think you can maintain it. But in like that 30-minute race, like, there's a lot more hair splitting. And so I just don't think getting out front in a championship is like the winning formula.
You step over that line much quicker in a Deka.
Did you watch, how long is the NCAA championships for men? Roughly 30 minutes. And women, what happened? Who went out front and who won? Not the person who went out front. And those races and they're great to watch, by the way. People go watch the NCAA champs from this past weekend. But anyways, case in point, when a race is of that duration, it like rarely pays off to be the shot out of the beginning. I've never seen it work.
And one big difference is that in high rocks, you can't really fake it after that first sled. Like, you can fake the first station and then you're sunk. You come off the sled, and if you're running faster than everyone else, it's because you have that fitness. In Deka, I was watching this thinking, like, someone like myself or you, Kirk, we could come in and we could lead for 3 or 4 stations if we wanted to. Even right now, having no fitness, I could go out and run a 65-second first quarter, fly over the lunges and the boxes, and then blow up. Maybe 3 stations, but high rocks, you'd make it 1 station and you're done. So I think it's easy. It's easy to get out and overextend. And it's really hard to see the gaps happen because the laps are so short. It feels like someone's miles ahead and then suddenly it's gone. Because once you tip, like going from 70-second quarters to 90, like you're gobbled up.
Were you guys listening to the live stream when Lauren's husband went on? I thought he said that she broke a toe the week of the race. Did you guys hear that part? Because if that's
she
true,
does have a toe injury, and they were coming off some kind of chest, upper respiratory nose.
Yeah.
So she was definitely compromised in a couple of ways.
Broken toe is not going to help you running.
No,
Mm-hmm.
rarely.
No, very rarely. But yeah, and Alondra had a really strong race too, because this was a time domain for her because like you said, like Kirk, this is like almost a nuanced distance where it's too long to just gun it, but it's short enough that you kind of have to really ride that line. And we've seen Alondra do really well on the opposite ends of spectrum. She's very powerful when it comes to the strong and the mile, and she's great at grinding it out. But this middle distance, this is like a distance runner's distance. And so for her, I was like, I don't know. I have to see it. I can't tell. And I think she came away with the second fastest Dekafit ever. So she really hung on. So she's been very impressive across all time domains so far.
What are the background of those top 3 women?
Tara's runner.
She is
Bridget's
okay.
Soccer.
Bridget was
soccer.
Bridget's D1 soccer player, and Alondra like mixed bag. She just kind of
Fitness.
That's a good specialty to have. Fitness.
She did the half Ironman World Championships that was in St. George. Is that what it is? In Utah, like a couple of weeks ago. So she just does stuff. She has a huge engine and a big capacity to do high-end work.
Cool. I just wasn't sure.
Meg Jacoby was on another planet.
So we're moving on from fit. Why wasn't she in fit? Did she not run one to qualify?
She didn't even know what it
Only
was
race
until a
was
couple
mile.
weeks ago.
She got in, qualified the only thing she could qualify, and went.
She drove like 5 hours to Pittsburgh to do like a Deka mile at some affiliate. Came in with a 3rd best time, I think. And like, by the time that was the, 3rd or 4th race for some of these athletes.
Yeah.
But Meg still broke the world record by 30 seconds or something like that.
I think it was game over no matter which race she showed up, to be honest. Like what she's done recently in High Rocks and just seeing her in person, her compromise running, I was like, there's no one else in the field who runs like this when they're compromised in the women's field. So,
She looked like Hunter looks when he's dominant. Like where that they're head and shoulders above everyone else. And it doesn't detract from anyone else's performance. And in the other races, it doesn't. Those were well-earned victories. But people are lucky that she wasn't qualified in all three.
I think the strong is a place
However,
where
before we
Jack's delay is killing us.
Jack, I know. Get
it's
your
killing me
internet
also.
together. What in the world? You don't got a plug?
It's
Plug
not this,
thing
it's
in.
that.
It is always that. I'm taking this one. But yeah, the Deka Strong would have been hard for her because it's so skilled and Tara's so good. She's so dialed in, and the bike is a kind of if you're not on the bike, right?
Tara looks so good.
She looked great. She was so dialed in for that strong. So I think that could have been a problem for Meg, but like that Deka fit, I don't know, dude.
250 more meters of her running.
Yeah, I know.
Or 350 more, whatever it is. 350 more of that running. Ugh.
What's up, Jack? What do you got?
I was just gonna say before we talked about Lauren Weeks and what she could have done, and obviously Meg Jacoby, but we haven't really given the credit to Tara yet. We just said that she picked the right points. I think that she just dominated everybody. She had a 25-second better 5K as a compromise runner in Dekafit, and she just timed it perfectly. And I think that her performance right there, we just need to talk about it a little bit.
I think all three in the top, like just watching and not knowing much background on these women, all three timed their races perfectly in the top three. Wouldn't you agree? They all closed. It was very impressive to watch.
It's interesting when you have someone like Lauren in a race like that. Like, what do? You kind of have to you have to be more aggressive than you want to be and still not be in the lead for that like chase pack. And they all kind of did it. And Lauren, it wasn't her day. She was on that bike for like 2.5 minutes. Like actually, her split was like 2:20 something. So once that happened, it was kind of over. And I talked to her a little bit about that. She's like, I just am not interested in doing any anaerobic training. I'm just doing like some long distance-y stuff. Like, this is not where I want to spend my time right now. So
that's always been her MO though. She just goes out and like runs.
And does CrossFit.
Does some CrossFit. Right. Never really mashes a lot of it together from my understanding.
Kind of. And that was like...
Except on race day.
Except on race day. Yeah.
That's not the person you anticipate going out in 3:10 for your first 1,000. And yet, she doesn't mind getting anaerobic.
No. She must just have a good high pain tolerance. Yeah. But Tara was great. Like you said, Jack, she just like focused on this. And another one of my critiques on her before this was the same critique that I had that I said before. It's like, let's see it. Are you going to win a race like that's this big? Until you do, like, I'm more comfortable picking the person who has done it,
Yeah. Hey, if those ladies had a podcast, you think they would have been saying the same crap about you? Yup.
Yeah, probably worse. Probably way meaner.
Exactly. They've been kicking you while you're already down.
We did it 2 weeks in a row. I questioned Chris, her ability to win World's Toughest because she hadn't done something like that. She went out and did it, and then she rubbed it in my face. You get the same thing. That's fine. That's when you have to debate who's going to do well.
You can't
everyone other than the person you pick is going to get the shaft, and that's just the nature of it.
But Jack, who
is going to challenge for Abu Dhabi?
Everybody. I don't know. Is that draft? Is that next week?
No. I was going to say who are we going to say you can't win it, and then they're going to end up winning it. That's what I meant.
Whoever I draft, I'm going to say that about.
Yeah. Anyway, Rich, sorry, cut you off.
In your prediction contest, who was the one person?
The only person who picked Rich Ryan to win was Rich Ryan. Imagine that.
Dude. Huge points in the prediction contest.
Only because I didn't participate.
Oh, I didn't even get mad at you guys. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just proud of myself.
I didn't want to put that out there and have them see it and add chips to Kent and Ryland and put you on their radar.
Thank you. That's very nice of you.
I was being tactical as a fan.
Do you want to know the last time that happened? Where an athlete picked themselves to win when no one else believed in it.
Yeah, Kempson's a good one.
Ryan Kempson in Jacksonville a few years ago. He entered the contest and he put himself winning it, and I was like, man, delivered. Like 200 people doubted him.
When I was doing the national series, I was sinking my prediction contest every freaking week, picking myself like 4th and 5th.
If it went up to 10, you would have been on the money.
Yeah. A couple of the races.
Yeah.
I don't know why people are afraid to pick like winners and losers of each event. Like people I don't want to call somebody a loser because I feel bad, but I don't feel bad. Who was our big winners? I think you and Tara were our big winners. Rich, I think you performed and rose, right? Who are the ones who underperformed? Would you say it'd be Lauren on the women's side? And whether it's because she's sick or not, like we expected more. And then who on the men's side?
On the men's side, I think Riker. I think Riker will tell you that.
Riker
He
came
blew
in
up a
winning.
little.
Yeah.
A little bit. He came in the 4 seed, finished I think 8th.
Nick had the biggest like seed time versus performance time drop if you subtract the two.
What
So
about on the women's side?
I guess the numbers.
That would probably have been Lauren.
Lauren as well. Okay.
And then I think Vivian was close to where she was a little bit slower. I think Bridget's time was like a second faster and same exact seed. And then I'm not exactly sure in the mid pack, like where I don't think Laura Cummings had a race she was necessarily happy with, but I didn't check.
We didn't have much from Chris.
Yeah. I mean, what could you like a race that is so high end?
Plus or minus.
What can you expect? Yeah.
I think if she's fresh, I don't know if she still challenges there.
Not without the prep.
And it's not even about her, it's about the other women. They're not only great at this, but they specialize in it. I don't think you can drop in and dabble.
There is nothing more painful than going from a long, slow aerobic effort to a short anaerobic type effort. Like it's the worst way to do things. Like you could go run Dekafit and then run WTM the next weekend without a problem, but doing the opposite is like competing with one arm tied behind your back. It's impossible.
Except it's your lung.
Except it's your lung, sure. It's horrible.
Not behind your back. Yeah.
It's a visual right there.
I would say finish that off, then I'm going to go to biggest losers, Rich.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's we always see Chris out there like volunteering and being with the community as well, and she was doing that again. And she doesn't just like volunteer and like count reps. She was like organizing people. Like I came in to help out for like the later age group, like Deka Mile or something like that, and she was like running the show within the volunteers. Like she's just
awesome.
She's just about it, you know. She is awesome.
I don't like it.
I like the zag.
Had enough of this one. All right, biggest losers of the weekend. First of all, I'm going to say all the men's favorites because of order of operations. Rich, had you won the second or third event of the weekend, it wouldn't have been as impactful. The fact that you won the first one instantly put Ryan and Rylan on the back burners. Because Kent had the best weekend out of anyone.
He was going around. He's like, he was like counting up how much money everybody made. He's like, well, I made the most money, so therefore I win. I was like, that's not part of the competition.
He made the most money. He had 2 wins and a second. Like he had the best overall weekend, but you were the biggest winner because you won the first race, which for better or for worse feels like the spotlight race. Like the setup of the weekend, you taking that took the Kent Ryland showdown and it kind of just like poof, it was gone. When it happened the next day, it was spectacular to watch, but didn't have the same gravitas to it that first race did, because you got the first one and that set the tone for the whole weekend.
Do you think it's the timing or just the nature of the events, like having like the fit or the mile and the strong as part of this competition is something that's interesting. We haven't really seen like a multi-day competition like this in really, and I guess the closest thing would be OCR World Championships, right?
Yeah.
But do you put more prestige on the 3K or the 15K, or are they just so different?
I think the 15K gets more prestige, but the first one gets the biggest spotlight. And so the fact that mile and strong feel like add-ons to Deka, because they were, you won the premier event in the premier television slot. And that cast a little bit of a shadow over the rest of the weekend. And so it's nothing that they did wrong. They won the wrong events.
Yeah. Suck on
90% of the people are coming from more of an endurance background than like just a pure strength background. And we all gravitate towards the longer option, and we all hold that to higher esteem by predisposition, whether it's on purpose or not. I mean, everything else is a by the way in my eyes, and it's not on purpose. It's just how my brain works.
Brian Corning, is he the only outlier there?
There was a couple athletes in the field that would be like.
There's a real tall kid. What's his name?
Oh shit, I forget.
Chris Van Hoff.
Yes, Chris Van Hoff.
Yeah.
And then there's Ryan Geiger.
That's true. So three guys out of.
I mean, Bubbles is Kevin Gregory is from our community and from a distance, but he is more of that.
Yeah, he's both. He's
I was impressed with him.
He's a monster.
I didn't know how much of a monster he was.
He's
Yeah.
a monster.
Dude's a
The
monster.
fact that he does ultras,
Dude's a
Right.
monster.
is
And
like
he's
what
been-
he's known for.
He's been
Respect.
doing OCR for years and years, but like this is actually
His jam.
his shit. Yeah,
Yeah. Or at least his wheelhouse.
totally.
But then the big losers of the weekend, I think, are the female High Rocks field.
Just
I
because of
don't-
Meg Jacoby.
Yeah, I think this just cemented that everyone's in trouble. Everyone's in trouble. I don't want to ride this train too long, but I think I'm going to. Like, just get ahead of it now.
So you're anti-Chris and pro-Meg now is how it feels?
I guess that's what it feels like.
Nice.
Next year, I'm going to be anti-Meg. I'm going to be sick of her winning everything. Just get her out of here. Let's bring Chris back.
And the thing about her too is like she didn't come to that mile for fun, right? She came to win. She has that aspect too. She's like, I'm better than these athletes, not in a way that's arrogant or off-putting. It's like aggressive and like fun to root for because she puts it out there and like she's gonna make things more competitive.
And just like last High Rocks, her second one, she smashed the world record. This is her second Deka. She smashed the world record. She doesn't need many to catch on. She translates quickly.
And Deka is so short. These like there's time on the board just based off like transitions and like how to really be efficient doing things.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's done 3 organized hybrid races and has 2 world records. So that's pretty
Just
good.
bad news for everyone.
Yeah, those are the losers in the weekend.
Virgins.
Everyone, not her. Did you guys watch a Deka Strong?
Yeah, I think Meg Jacoby's emergence reminds me a lot of. Did you guys hear that?
If you
yeah,
keep-
Meg
if you start
Jacoby
talking,
coming on the
just
scene
keep
kinda
talk-
reminds
just
me
keep
of Emma
talking.
Cook Clark.
Hmm.
I did a speed test. It says I'm at 226 megabits per second. I don't know what's going on.
You need to be at 1 million.
But anyway, 1 million. Yeah.
Do a leg test.
Yeah, see what that's like.
All right. But anyway, you guys can chime in afterwards. I feel like Meg Jacoby coming on the scene, we know what's going to happen when she gets a few more races under her belt. She's already proven it. I think it's just like what Emma Cook Clark did when she joined the scene in the Spartan National Series. So I think she's probably the best comparison that I can think of.
It's fun when somebody comes in and just changes the game. Like a Rylan Shadig comes in and just shakes the world. A Hawk Call enters the Spartan scene last year and shakes it up. It's like, God, that just changes the entire dynamic. I think in your post, Rich, afterwards, you said, like, and you were thanking everybody, including Bracken, love fest over there. But
That's
you were
my
like,
guy.
and thank you, Rylan, for just your mere presence made us all step up our game. Like Meg Jacoby fits that bill, and it's good to have people enter the field that scares you.
Yeah, I had that.
So good
I
for
had
the sport.
that realization because most of it was kind of like not disdain, but like this a motivation in like a negative way. It's like I just want to beat this guy. I want to beat this guy. He shouldn't be this good already. Whatever. And then after the fact, I was like, I wouldn't have trained as hard if this dude wasn't here. Like he literally did make me better because like of course I wanted to beat Kent, but he's also like a real good friend of mine. Like we hang out. But so the motivation was just upped, and that like manifested in a higher level of training, higher level of fitness. So like, yeah, Meg's like those athletes are going to have to do more. They can't keep on their way the way that they have if they want to match what Meg's going to do.
I'm fairly certain that if you took Meg right now and put her in the men's world championship Vegas High Rocks event, she would not take last.
With the men's weights?
Yep.
Okay.
That's what I think.
All right.
I think she would not have Jack Bauer that situation.
Dude, you are so quick to just turn on people you once loved and just start grabbing onto the next branch.
I like it. He's up in the game. He's the best at it.
I'm following Rich. I came in that last episode. Who would you fight? And I gave 2 fake examples. And Rich tried fighting everyone. He must have said 10 times, and I'm going to fight him. It's on site with him next time. What happens? He wins a world title.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing.
You're falling trapped to the monkey theory. You got to have a hold of one branch before you let go of the other, the last one. And you just grabbed onto Meg and you let go of Chris. Just like that.
I don't like that analogy.
Bad
That's what
analogy.
you are.
I'm a very hands-off man.
Yeah.
That's a monkey theory. No, that's true.
Listen, I took dead last at Nationals my first race. I have a soft spot for having a low energy back of the pack day. I understand that feeling. And because of that feeling, Jack is going to not have that feeling ever again. Like you get that out of the way and you're not the same athlete for having been around that environment, for having gone through that situation. The next time through, you're just better.
Yeah, I remember sitting with
also I'll
Hawk
fight you.
Hall. I remember sitting with Hawk Hall at Blue Mountain when they were doing the top 3 in the national series standings, and all he needed to do is get like 11th place or better, and he'd end up with 3rd, and he'd make $5,000 or something like that. And he ended up getting 12th or 13th, and he missed out on it. He was just watching it, and we were just sitting there, just kind of off to the side, and he was like, "This is never going to happen again." And I believe him. And after that experience, I'm feeling the same way. It's like I know
You
what it's
believe
like.
everything he says. He can tell you anything. You're like, oh,
I'll try. She legit. Yeah.
she legit.
Yeah. Trying to make a good moral story for you guys. You don't even care. Just anyway.
When you're done talking, we're gonna make fun of you.
Hey, you remember that Notre Dame race where I took dead last in that field? You want to know what I did the next race? I won that shit.
Oh.
It was a dual meet, and only the second stringers were in it. I won that shit.
Did you pop into like a 5K at like a road 5K somewhere?
No,
That's right. So Jack, Dekafit Cozumel, you're going to be the favorite next week.
Yeah. I kind of want to go to San Francisco Stadium in like a week. Just do it. Just end my season, head into the off season on a good note. Just to do it. But
you know what someone told me over the weekend, like. I was blown away by all the love and people reaching out to me and saying thank you at the event and how much they like what we're doing here. Thank you guys so much. Subscribe to our Patreon. But someone said Jack was the funniest host on Race Brain. I was like, yeah.
She's one of your clients also.
Yeah, Cheryl Snow. She was Triple Crown winner. She's a beast.
Yep.
Jack, congratulations.
The people who are funny when they're not trying to be funny.
Then I was like, wait, is Jack trying to be funny? I didn't know.
No.
Jack's playing chess over here.
Yeah.
You don't even realize it. It's my game.
Did you guys watch Deka Strong?
Watched everything.
I know you did. You didn't catch it, Kirk? You should watch it.
I didn't have enough time. I was cramming. Next assault bike workout, I'll catch up.
I was upset they didn't. I couldn't find it live.
Oh, is that right?
I was not happy with that.
I was on my assault bike watching, and it was a Jack. I don't remember who it was. And somebody was saying Kent was at 90 RPMs. Mm-hmm. And so my phone covers the statistics on my assault bike because I just go at recovery effort. I watch my heart rate. Anyways, I moved my phone over, and I got my assault bike up to 90 RPMs. And I was like, not a chance. I'm fresh. And like 90 RPMs is going to burn me to the ground. And he was holding holding 90 RPMs, and I was just in mid-recovery effort. Like I was fresh and ready to drop. Unbelievable. Shout out Kent and your assault bike prowess.
Ryan Corning got his up to 118 during Deka Strong.
Can't imagine.
Craziness.
He got airborne. Yeah.
That's insane.
Like he bunny hopped?
Like he levitated.
Oh, the bike was moving.
Taking off because
that's Jack's attempt at humor again, you guys. Are you that slow?
Dude, our listeners are laughing their ass off right now.
He's got it. You know, there's probably a whole sect that are just tuning in for a comedy hour, and we didn't even know it.
I didn't know.
Did you catch Jack's stand up last week on Race Brain?
Oh, we got to remarket this whole thing. It is under comedy for some reason on Spotify. Maybe I should just put Jack Bauer comedy.
Jack's the only one who knew we know why.
Clearly, I didn't know.
We are so far behind.
What'd you think of that layout, Bracken, in terms of watching the Strong?
I didn't get a great perspective of layout in Strong. It didn't feel as efficient as it was in a lot of the gyms I watched. Did it to you?
No, I think that's a correct assessment. That there was, I came into it thinking there was going to be lanes that I would be assigned a lane. I came in the 6th seed or whatever, and I figured I would be in the 6th lane, and my lane would run straight, or they would have like 1, 2 in the middle, right, and kind of go out, like if it was 100 meters or something. But we got there, we were assigned a mat for the lunges. And they were staggered. So we had a staggered start. So it was like a row in the front, row in the back. And then we kind of ran to our mats. And then from there was a free for all until you got to your bike. So you could get off of the mat and you could just take any station. Could you tell what was happening? Did it look like that was happening?
I had a hard time when you came into, was it sled? What were you leaning into?
Into ski
Into ski
and
is that right?
farmers was the
Farmers.
first. Yeah.
Farmers. You came into farmers and ran all the way down to the end. And I'm like, oh, they're still in assigned lanes. I thought they weren't. And then the next station, I'm like, they're not. I don't know. I like the idea of it being in a row, like move down, but a lateral row is the toughest because you're always running into that coming off of into someone.
Mhm.
Like, the way CrossFit progresses there is down. That's a fantastic way of doing it, or go forward, over, back, or something like that. But laterally down, that makes for tricky transitions, in my opinion.
It put the strength athletes at a massive disadvantage. It was an advantage for me, as we said it earlier. It's like I got a chance to run, even like a little bit.
It was a running Dekastron.
Yeah, it was probably Jack. How long do you think the layout was from like wall to wall? Like,
well, if you do
80
160
meters?
and do a loop, it's got to be 70 to 80 meters right there.
Yeah. So in a regular gym event, there's no gym that's 80 meters, right? They're usually in probably 40 meters, like at a gym.
20.
Like how long? 20? Yeah, where they can stack it all back to
I
back to
watched
back.
one in it felt like a 30-foot by 30-foot box. They just had them all stacked.
Yeah.
You know, with the sled going off. So that one looked like it had 20 total feet of transition, and yours had almost 100 meters.
So for me, it was like great. But for a dude like Ryan Corning, and Jack was doing a great job on the coverage, like going around seeing what everybody was doing. And how fast was he rowing, Jack?
He was dead last. He was like 150 almost, like high 140s, Ryan Corning.
And that dude's a monster.
He had his plan. He has so many different full simulation videos. And if you look at the progression dating back to last year, it's like, oh, here's strategy number 1, here's strategy number 2. And he found out that if he gets his heart rate low, he can come in dead last at the air bike and leave. I think he left in second or third at that point. He just made it up all there, put in a 15-second all-out effort, which seems foolish, but that is the strategy that works for him. And he's tried everything, and that's how he capitalizes.
So he has to pace those first stations. And without assigned lanes, like I was in a lane, and then at sit-ups, I was like, I'm in a good spot. And then I was like, should I just keep in my lane? I was like, no, I'm going to that first lane and making whoever would take that lane take somewhere else. And like, that's something that I was able to do because I need to like get all the way up as fast as I can so I can just hang on for that assault bike. Yeah. So he got like displaced. So he, along with the transitions from station to station, he was making transitions within the stations, like lateral transitions.
You made him laterally go probably 30 to 40 feet to get, well, he got there last, but your decision to take that inside box forced him to the outside. And that, you know, your sprint finish, which we'll talk about after, was 0.3 seconds apart. He was probably 5 seconds having to cut across laterally. So you got second place by choosing that strategy.
Yeah. That's strategy. And that's the interesting thing. That's awesome. Like, it was awesome to see strategy. And that was not a 0.3 second finish. That was 0.03, it looked like in real time. But I almost feel like strong is the place where it shouldn't be strategy. It should just be wattage. It should be, it's like the 50-meter free. You just want to see them hit the water and white froth all the way down and just crazy output. Like, I didn't like seeing people get cut in front of. I'm all for that in mile and fit, but that strong felt like, let's let these, like the big dogs, just thrash away with no regard for thinking, just power. And
that's how they practice.
Yeah.
So it was not great for them. Great for me, Brad, but like not a very like advantageous setup. But Ryan Kent, if he had any setup, he was murdering people that day. There was no one touching him. And I get a good chance to see him in training. And I thought like 11:15, 11:10 was on the table, and he was like 11:09 or something like that. He was next level in that.
What race is the most painful, Rich? It's a terrible question because we know they're all different, but which one do you dread the most? You know, that dread before the gun goes off, like, you know, it's going to hurt in a way that you're not always prepared for. Which one provokes that the most?
Well, Deca Strong definitely does that because you have no option. It's like running the 400, right? And that's kind of how I felt coming from. I felt like a 10K guy dropping into an 800. And if those guys are going to do well at all, they need to like press from the front. So like I don't have an option to like not go hard. And Dekafit, you have a little bit of that push and pull. But the way I felt in the Dekafit after the assault bike on those last runs, like that was not how I like to feel. It was not good.
Did you feel terrible?
Horrible.
Because you looked strong.
I went back and watched it.
And I was composed. Your stride you kept together.
It was like I felt like I could barely move.
You had no form breakdown on the run.
From home, it looked like you were in cruise control.
It did.
I wasn't.
You scared me a little when you walked across that line and Kent is hammering.
I didn't realize how close he was.
I was like, "Oh, this could have turned out differently."
I had like 6 or 7 on him. I was like, that would be insane, but he's really fast at him.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, I mean, like the Strong, it's a guarantee it's going to suck. But the fit is worse when you get to that point.
I think was it with our interview with Ryan Atkins? Was it Bracken? I asked him which races he gets the most anxiety over, and he said the shorter because there's less room to settle in. As soon as the gun goes off, like it's the most painful because there's no time to acclimate to the effort. It's like you go from 0 to hero in the snap of a finger with no ramp up phase, and those typically hurt the most.
It's like that age old, what's the most painful race in track? People love to say the 800, but I think it's different for everyone.
The pole vault if you do it wrong.
What do you say, pole vault if you do it wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah, the Strong would be miserable for a 10K guy. And the fit would be miserable for Corning.
Oh, he doesn't want to do that.
So I think those events look like the least let up events in sport right now. Even the 3K at World Championships, there's some spots you can catch your breath.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't know about Deka.
That's what's wild with someone like Ryan Corning, who he's so powerful that he can actually pace it.
Yeah.
That he has to kind of pace it, where that's not an option for me. Like Kent has best of both worlds because he's super powerful and he has high end endurance. So he can just kind of put himself at this like incredible work rate for 11 minutes.
I had a question about that. Kent clearly has crazy power because his sled work is on par with the big guys and his assault bike is on par with the big guys. But he doesn't seem like the guy who's throwing out crazy weight room numbers. Where does his power derived from? You two are the only ones who have out of this group who have seen him actually in his gym training. How does he drive this power? Where does it come from? Because he's a tight athlete. He's not super limber. He doesn't use great angles on things. His form isn't technically proficient on a lot. Where does this come from?
Jack, what do you think?
Bench press and curls. Yeah, no, no, he has a sweet setup in his gym, and I think that he does a lot of 2-a-day sessions, right, Rich? And I think that just having that supplementary strength or those like dedicated strength sessions, I think is setting him apart a little bit versus some people, maybe like a Dylan or Tara Jackson, who I'm pretty sure they're just kind of, their strength is based on the machines that they'll be seeing in the race. They're very specific about that. And I think that Ken adds a little on extra, but Rich, you probably know a little bit more from meeting up with them a little more often.
I don't really know. I think about this too, because now he's not even that much bigger than I am. And he's still, and my strength numbers are pretty close to his, but the way he can put out power, I don't have it. So it might be something with the way he does his easy runs. He prefers like climbing, right? He would rather spend time doing the mini incline or running in like trails and on mountains. And maybe it's from years of that.
But how does that play into an assault bike? Or his ram burpees? Yes. I mean, I know it can, but he puts out significantly more wattage than any of the other hybrid runners. And he approaches the wattage of the hybrid strength people. I can't put a finger on where that is.
I don't have an answer.
And that's the thing with him too. Like he has like this pride in being a runner who now has this power. And like, if you came in from outside of this, I didn't realize Kent wasn't ever a high level runner when it first came, like where I first saw him as an OCR athlete. I was like, oh, he's probably just like a ball sports athlete who got decent at running because he's
Mhm.
like so yoked. But he's a runner. I don't know. I don't
You
know how he
guys,
does.
we both have podcasts. We could just have him on and ask him.
He doesn't
About
know
that?
either. He's gonna be like, dude, I
Does
don't know,
he
just
get
fucking
under-
get on the bike, bro, and fucking hammer.
Does he get under heavy load? Is this guy putting all like 300 pounds on his back and squatting and pulling 400 plus pounds on deads, or is he all functional?
He's got a
he
good
can pull
deadlift.
heavy. He can pull heavy, but when he
OCR
did pull
stars,
heavy,
he was like 50-ish.
yeah, 450. He but he didn't progress to that. He just put it on one day and pulled it up. So his
Yeah.
so his back squat's not
So
very
he
good
had it.
because he doesn't spend a ton of time under the bar. So
Mhm.
his movement's not great. But like just picking something off the ground, he can just like do it. So
Yeah, and that's what I don't get. Like I can't
don't
point to a
either.
number. I can't point to a metric that says monster output other than the output metrics that he does.
But it's mod. It's every time you take a step as you're pushing that sled, what percentage can you keep of your raw power? And sure, maybe his raw power isn't as good as some, or maybe it is, but it's that percentage thing, right? He just keeps the highest percentage of it because this is all multi-rep station work, right? So,
well, and I
that's
think
it.
I kind of lump Hunter into that, except because Hunter doesn't have great lifting PRs.
And no,
really
no,
doesn't.
compared to hybrid athletes, they're good, but compared to like strength athletes, they're not good.
Hunter's
He-
bench is behind. That's his weakest lift. You ever know that? Fun
And
You
he
fact.
got him,
started
you got
to
him
get
on
it up.
bench?
Oh yeah,
He didn't
take
get
him
3
on.
bills till like a year ago.
I have no concept for bench press because like,
Yeah.
why the fuck? But you guys are bench press experts as far as I know.
I don't bench
I don't
anymore.
know
That's a waste of time, but
Expert.
I used to.
What I know is that when I first started OCR, I weighed about 169 and I benched 270.
Well,
I think
Hunter-
that's exceptional though.
Yeah.
that is.
It's
Should have gotten
decent.
that Arnold pump and run classic.
Yeah, pump and run. That's that 3K Spartan race.
What
and
I'm
pump
saying
and
though
run
is that
your-
Hunter at 200 was struggling for 300. Like I'm not putting myself near him because I'm not. I'm saying that compared to people who are strong, and Hunter will admit he doesn't have strong lift numbers. He's very strong, but he's not a power lifter.
Mhm.
Where like if you take the 3 in our North American sphere, you'd probably say Kent, Hunter, and Isaiah are the lifting power athletes who can run. Isaiah smashes these guys' lifts. Like it's not even close. But they can put out like he can put out on a rower or an assault bike or a ski erg or a sled. And maybe I'm just like gonna bash my head against the wall on this. Maybe it's the intangible, but I don't know why. Like why can they put out on the assault bike the way people can who can bench or deadlift or squat or thrust way more than they can?
Well, the genetic component, right, is the muscle fiber type. I guess is something we could talk about where some
Yeah.
people just have more type A or slow. We'll just say slow and fast. Some people have born with more slow twitch. Some people are born with more fast twitch. And there's that middle that you can kind of convert.
2B.
Something like that. Yeah. That you can make one or the other. And maybe they're just better at converting in either direction, or they have more of that. Like it could be something as simple as just like genetics, but hate that answer, but it could be.
Maybe they just want it more.
Do you think the fact
Maybe they're
that
just tougher.
They're
it
just
also
tougher.
happens like 6, even in a Deka Strong, you're getting on the air bike at like 6 or 7 minutes in. The fact that people are fatigued and he has such a good compromised engine heading into it, I think that's
For sure.
also helping him. Because
I think engine leads the way still.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like the ratio of
let's say
engine
you took-
versus strength. Do some formula. Boom. There's your answer probably.
let's say every single person who was in Deka Strong, all that you have to do is you start on the air bike and let's see what your highest RPMs, what can you get it up until? Do you think there's like a big outlier? There might be like a couple who might be able to get 5 or 6 higher, but I feel like in a peak instant, most people could probably get it to like 105, 110, I'd say, maybe a little bit higher in that field, just as like their peak output. But I think the fact that you're coming into it breathing heavy, Kent just has that compromised ability from doing this for so many years. That's what him apart, because 90 is moving absolutely, but 90 at that point might feel like 100, 110 earlier on when you're fresher.
Yeah, I think there's truth to all of that. But when we look at training, I can't point to why he's so much better on some of these things. Maybe I don't get an answer to that.
Not today, you don't.
Not today. We'll work on it. We're cooking. Bracken and I, we're out here cooking.
We're cooking.
Stirring
whipping
it up. Whipping it good.
Speaking of what translates, this is a little, I'm going to go off the rails for a second, but an athlete of mine proposed to me, he was trying to wrap his head around why the 400 meters, like if you took is the 1500 meter run more like the 400 or more like the marathon? And I was like, well, it's only 700 meters apart from a 400 to a 1500, but the 1500 is 25 point some miles away from the marathon. Don't worry about it. Bracken's rubbing off on me, but
I didn't even catch it.
Right. Anyways, it's like I was like the 1500 is closer to the marathon. Like it's an easy answer, but it's 25 miles away, and the other one's only 700 meters apart or whatever it is. Jack, 900 meters apart. 11, whatever the fuck it is.
This is a math show.
Yeah, get out. I never messed that up either. Anyways, I don't know why I brought that up, but you guys all agree with that, right?
Yeah. If you took the Olympic marathon field and the Olympic 400 field and you met in the mile, the marathoners would dust the 400 meter runners.
Isn't that weird? And then he was trying to ask how the body works. He's like, I can't wrap my head around like the body works this way. Like it doesn't make sense. I'm like, you're right. It doesn't make sense, but it's fact.
Like,
that's why
this is what I'm telling you.
What I'm getting at is energy systems, bro.
Yes.
And you switch energy systems at a certain point, and that will factor into your ability to push weight because you've switched over energy systems. You're not in an anaerobic power system anymore. Once you get 6 minutes in and you hit a strength movement or an assault bike, it's a conversion factor, right? And that's like, I'm sure we could science it out. It's my long way of getting at that. But anyways, that was just an interesting conversation I had recently.
No, it's very interesting. And that's why every year it seems like someone's like, who would make the best OCR athlete? And they're always like, decathletes, 400 meter runners would be sick at stadiums. Or it's like, no. You find a rock climbing 10K athlete
who lives by trails.
Yeah. Find someone who's a ball sport athlete, but has a disgusting half marathon. Boom. Like you can't source them up. You have to bring them down.
Right.
And that's the unfortunate. And it's I think like 8 years ago, I wrote something about an article about the fallacy of the runner's course. Like it doesn't matter. These things have been the trend forever. It's that it's not sexy to say running leads the way on every sport, even Deka mile. But unfortunately, once you cross over, I don't know,
3 minutes,
70 seconds.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
I think it's 90 seconds is where you can hang anaerobic.
Yeah, once it is 60-40 aerobic, the 40 doesn't matter because you can teach that 40 to anyone. Not everyone. I firmly believe there are some people who can't go anaerobic during aerobic activities and vice versa. Some people can't use power during aerobic. That's part of that skill set that helps a hybrid athlete. But once it tips over, for sure, past 7 minutes, it's it. It's over. The other skill set no longer applies. And that's that hard truth that people don't want to wrap their minds around. In fact, if you're like a 7 minute or less athlete, I think you'd have a better chance moving up to a 24-hour race than a 10 or a 15K.
That's there's a complete different intangible at that point.
Like you'll have a better chance of winning world's toughest than Dekafit.
It's like Katie
if
Knight.
You're a 400 meter runner.
Like if Katie Knight came into Dekafit, I don't think she's top 5 this past weekend.
But how crazy is that?
Strong.
A 400 meter runner would probably have a better chance winning world's toughest than Dekafit.
Thanks for batting clean up on my point there, Bracken.
But you're right. And that stuff fascinates me always. So I'm glad you brought it up. But that whoever that was bringing that up, those are good thinking points because they're true and they don't make sense.
Well, got no answers for you. So just do what Kirk says in training and then you'll be fine.
Rich, were you the one that I asked after the race, or was it Ryan Kent where I said, is there anybody that you think could have stepped on this course and hung with you guys? And I think that was after Deka Mile or Deka Strong. And I know he obviously gave like the generic answer, I want to see Hunter McIntyre, but I think it was you or Kent, but probably Kent. And he was like, honestly, I don't think that there are many people out there who could, like, in the world, just because it's so specific and just kind of some of the arguments we've been making the past 5 or so minutes. Do you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, let's open that up to everybody. So basically it's like, could a CrossFitter come in and do well? And I think I think that it is so specialized now that they would have a hard time.
We had our answer, Taylor Williamson.
Yeah, she got work.
She didn't even make the podium.
Well, what are we talking about stepping in? Are we talking sight unseen, toe the line, or are we talking give them 3 weeks to prep? Because 3 weeks isn't enough to build true fitness, so give them 3 weeks to prep.
That's what that's so I think sight unseen, they can't. No, I don't think anyone was beating Ryan Kent in that Deka strong just because of how weird it is.
Too
and how
nuanced.
so silly in some points, you know, like just like the step overs and the sit ups. If you didn't really think about how to do this, I don't think so. But
Even the
3
over
weeks-
shoulders, over step through, you wouldn't naturally do that.
No way. And so 3 weeks of training, I think that the strong
Roman
I think
Krenikov,
CrossFitters,
someone like him.
Yeah, I think so. That's what I thought Taylor Williamson. I was like, she can't be coming here not prepared. She looked okay moving through it. She just wasn't very fast.
Hepner would be a problem. But he's
Oh, yeah.
been in this world. Kind of.
Yeah. But he's still an but he still didn't even take down Hunter back in the day. He was losing him by a decent margin. I just don't think
what?
TMX.
Yeah, that was crazy nuance too.
I guess the close
Hunter's designing the damn
comparison for
course.
TMX and we are arguing Deka strong. Yeah.
I think that the
I don't know,
mile. Go ahead, Jack. You finish your thought, then I'll jump in.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the fact that we had a very fit just coming off of, well, not just, but earlier this summer, Taylor Williamson winning a CrossFit Games team title. She was hand selected by Rich Froning second straight year. That's not a joke of a CrossFit athlete. You should be able to do the air bike, the rower, the skier, push a sled without much. You should be crushing people in that. And I know that CrossFit is much more weight under load, body awareness, that kind of stuff. And this is just more of a lighter weight output type of thing. But in a 12-minute workout or so, plus or minus a minute for most of these athletes, there are CrossFit Games workouts that don't involve weight that are shorter than that or right around the same time domain, and they do just fine. So I don't know. I think she was kind of our proven concept that you can't just step in and, people are so dialed in on the specificity of workout. I don't think it's done.
I don't want to discredit her or be disrespectful to her, but I think that we would have to have a higher level athlete. Like there's a difference between a team games athlete and a games athlete. It's like saying someone was on the podium at OCR Worlds in the co-ed team race. Like that might have meant she was Chris Rogloski, and it might have meant she was Chris Rogloski's friend. There's a difference between those two. I think if you take someone who has proven to be top of CrossFit, they could step into into strong, and within a week or two, challenge for the best in the world.
I would think the same because I deeply respect what these CrossFitters do. And like, I understand how good that they are in all these different domains and how strong that they are. But maybe in terms of capacity and output, it's not that much different than what someone like a Ryan Corning or a Ryan Kent. Maybe they are approaching what is currently like the ceiling across the board because these CrossFitters are so good at lifting super heavy technical lifts, doing all these other things that are just like mind blowing. And that I could argue, I don't know. I don't have to back up that is what separates a CrossFit Games athlete from a teams athlete is the well-roundedness across all the domains, as opposed to how well you do in a 10-minute workout.
You drank that Kool-Aid for a long time. You understand it better than anybody.
Yeah, I still sip on it.
Yeah,
it's like a Fagowski or someone like that. Someone who has some length to him, has some skill. Yeah.
Oh, okay. He's like 6'3", something. He's tall.
No, I thought you said Fagowski or something.
I think he's 5'11", but he looks like 6'3" to a CrossFitter.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Someone who has some metrics on machines. I think it would be arrogant of me
on the air bike
to say that they couldn't step in and do this thing. But mile and fit, I think it's in-house. I think the best candidates are already in-house because the engine development concurrently with strength takes so long that you're not going to find someone out of the blue. Like, yeah, for every there are more people like Anas out there. And he proves that people can do it. And maybe he's a contender for a podium next year. But it would take someone like that. Someone who's done the same path as Kent or yourself or us, where you were a decent to high level runner who then found the gym and the weight room and spent the greater part of a decade working on that. You can't fabricate that out of thin air. So, and Nas has done that. He was a sub 4 miler, right? 359, 4 flat,
358.
358. Yeah.
and then
Wow.
he found the weight room. Like that's what it would take. So they're out there, but if you want someone in the next year or two, they're in house. It's Ryan Ekins. It's
BJ with the little weight. Magida.
BJ. It's Tobias.
Magida.
You know, people who
Tobias
are
somehow, yeah.
people who are in house.
Rich, you beat a 358 miler. How's that feel?
Put him in a headlock.
That's a feather in your cap.
And he was like I think he was a conference champ. D1, like he was like legitimate, like good. He wasn't just like time trial and stuff.
Did you see his 5K split?
No, I didn't notice. Did you?
I could be wrong. I think
17.
1822.
Mod needs work.
I could be wrong on that. I'm going to check that up as we talk.
1750.
1750.
Yeah, I'd imagine if we lined up in a 5K next to each other, that it wouldn't be a minute difference right now.
That is deceiving how those CrossFitters are built. Touching on that, they're all built like meatballs. Every time I see like a Matt Fraser next to like a normal human, I'm like, God, that dude's short. Like you make me look tall.
And it's funny on the women's side, it's not like that the women are shorter too. They're the same size as the dudes.
There's like,
Yeah, there's just like
size.
you need to be like 5'5" to 5'8", and like that's how
It's
you get
wide.
CrossFit.
Yeah.
Just
thick.
thick, 2 C's.
First time I saw him in person was at the first TMX. I mean, the first High Rocks in Miami. It was at that convention center, and they had a CrossFit
Yeah.
convention of some sort going on. And he walked up to the start line to say hi to Hunter. I was like, that guy looks like a shorter Matt Fraser. And then it was Matt Fraser.
It's a regular Matt Fraser.
Wild.
Did you guys have athletes out there? Brad, I know you had some.
Mhm.
Kirk, did you have anybody at an AC? The one thing I got to give props to is those age groupers brought it. I watched the majority of all of the races. It felt like I didn't miss many, and all those athletes were really ready for this. There wasn't like if you go to an affiliate event, you'll see people like really suffering almost immediately in these. These athletes were ready to rock in every single event. So, and they were like, the intensity was there. The race was fun. Like one of the best races I saw over the weekend was the 40 to 44 men, or 44 to or 45 to 49, I believe. There was like a bunch of lead changes and like a surprise finish at the end. And like you could tell everyone was really invested in this. So I thought it was really cool to see that, because if you watch an age group race in Spartan, not that fun to watch. No offense, but it's just like strung out, slow, and just like it's an OCR event is just slower, you know. But this was really fun to watch the age groupers throw down.
How would you compare?
Speaking of battles,
So-
Speak on.
Jack, go
I
right
was just
ahead.
going to say that this is the. Sorry, it looked like you stopped.
We
on
were
my
speaking
end,
of
but I was just going
battles.
to say this is the first. Yeah, well, you said a great head-to-head performances and stuff. First time that we saw 12 people line up at Deka Mile and Deka Strong as well, and I think that kind of resulted in better performances as well.
For sure. Records broken. Kent broke 2 records that probably won't get touched again until another world championship. And on the women's side, Meg broke it, but I don't think Tara broke her own, but she has it. So, Kirk, where are we going with that?
I was going to ask, when I watch a High Rocks, the vibe and the feel is like palpable. Like I can get the idea of the energy by watching it, like on YouTube or watching it live. I couldn't get a feel if the energy was similar or dulled at Deka, because High Rocks is such a production, right? Did it feel similar as far as like how many people were in the building, the music, the vibe, the energy? Was it as consuming and intense as a High Rocks, or does it feel different?
Jack, what do you think?
I mean, I covered the races for everyone except Dekafit, and I participated in that as well. And every single time that I looked around, you had 5 to 6 rows deep lining the walls at every single zone where most of the competitors were. That burp Ryan Kent and Rylan Shattuck at the end of Deka Mile was just ludicrous. When there was in the farmer's carry, I think at Dekafit, there were 5 women separated by like 3 seconds. They were going wild on that. I don't think that it picked it up as well on YouTube, but the atmosphere in there, every single person, all eyes were on that and screaming. And that's probably why I lost my voice yesterday.
The reason I ask is getting at, like, for people listening, like, if, you know, that's something you want to experience, are you going and getting an experience? Because I think we've all agreed High Rocks, you go and you get an experience because every event they do is big. So I just wanted to confirm that, you know, this feels like an experience, right? Because that's important if people are traveling, spending money, that sort of deal.
They haven't matched the production that High Rocks has.
Nor the numbers of open waivers.
Yeah. So like the atmosphere in a High Rock still feels a little bit different. It still feels like, and then they have the music thing down, they have the MC thing down, lights. It's a whole deal. What this did was more just, it is still just more of like a fitness competition in a warehouse, right? You know, we got our guy Jeff Burton on the mic crushing as always, but the music part isn't there and the lights part isn't necessarily there. But there was a lot of people. Jack's right. Like it was not like if you didn't stake your place, you weren't able to see everything. So like, and so the crowd was fun and the crowd was raucous, which is another thing we don't get a ton in an OCR, right? Like, because it's just hard.
And you get to see the moves get made, and that is always the.
I'd have brought legitimacy.
As if you start, you got to power through.
You got to keep going. You got to if you're gonna steamroll, fucking do it all the way through.
There's a 3 or a 4 second delay, and I hear Bracken talking at the same time I talk, so it's driving me crazy. I'm sorry, but I was just gonna say that I thought it brought legitimacy because a lot of people were like, "Oh, does Deka even matter?" Rich, you were on the podcast with Matt, right? I didn't hear it yet, but I know he's been kind of a detractor since the beginning. He's like, "Is Deka even anything? Like, what will it amount to and stuff?" But I feel like you had a very good buy-in throughout the year. A lot of people who wanted to be at this event throughout all the age groups and the elite divisions. And I think that the overall showing and the atmosphere there, I thought that it was justified of having a championship event for this.
I'm satisfied with your answers.
Matt's post today, "Is it still dumb?" or whatever that tagline is. That's kind of misleading because he's the one who said it was. It's not like the industry said, "Yeah, this is dumb." It's, "I don't like this. This is dumb." And now the post, "Is it still dumb?" Like, I don't know. Have you changed your mind yet?
And he's never done one.
Yeah.
So,
High Rocks was the worst day of his life, I'm pretty sure.
That was not. It did not seem like a fun day for him.
Oh.
Any final points on this? Put a cap on this Dekafit season. Going to lead into some
props
High
to
Rock
Jack
stuff.
going out there taking his lumps
Dave
and then
Claxton.
still commentating on the races with a good attitude. Jack, way to go!
Nice
Not
job,
easy
Jack.
to do.
I want to shout out Dory Kirshner and Mike Day, two of my athletes I had out there.
I didn't see Mike DZ. How was he? Like, how did he
I
do?
haven't talked to him yet. Maybe he didn't make it.
I thought I saw him in the results. I figured he'd come up. Last time I saw him, it was like 4 a.m. in Vegas.
As far as I know, that man competed. And then my condolences to Rob Pettyjohn. Rob and I have worked together for over 2 years now, and the man just wins every age group competition in sight. I don't think he's ever lost outside of world championships where he had to do the pro weight. I don't think he's ever lost the outright age group or open championship at anything. And he didn't end up getting to go.
What happened?
He did one last minute to qualify. He was all set. We were prepared to win this thing. And life circumstances came up and he didn't get to race. And that's tough. And I had another guy, Matt, who's been training for a marathon, and he woke up sick the day before and didn't get to run it this weekend. So 2 athletes, if you're out there, that kind of stuff happens. It sucks. But if you're in that boat, you just got to pivot and use that fitness somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So Rob's going to go do it LA.
I got my boy Simon Diaz was going to go show up and smash the doubles age group, and he rolled around in bed for 4 days sick and left his partner hanging dry. So now I got to bring it up. Now that we're doing this thing, I can't leave it off the table. Jesus.
It's the unfortunate downside of big events is you put in a lot of work for it, and sometimes life just dumps on you.
Yeah, especially now, you just can get COVID or something like that. And
yeah, it's tough.
That's it. So next week we are going to. Is next week the draft for?
It's gotta be.
Yeah,
we have a week until the Spartan World Championship. So Jack, who's going to that? I mean, you got some work cut out for you.
I'll find out when you guys do.
Well, we're gonna find out when you tell us. So
yeah, Rylan Chris Rogloski, VJ, I know for sure from the US.
And he's going. And he's going too.
Annie as well. Okay. And I thought Lindsay and Ryan, they're Canada, but I thought that they mentioned that they were going.
I'd imagine they were going to go.
Makes sense. Running champs.
Did you see the first glimpse
We'll
of that
talk about
course?
next week.
No, they got a little preview.
Little preview. Garfield Griffith giving some breakdown.
Is it Sandy?
Looks a little faster.
It could look like anything compared to the faster from last year. It's not a great tell.
I mean, it looks like more of a hard pack course.
Nice
Doesn't look like you're going to be dune buggying it.
for a super.
Yeah, you might have the exact opposite skill set represented as last year.
Maybe a watch along again.
Maybe.
We'll see. Early morning, Jack.
I'll do it. I was there last year.
What time would that
Maybe
be?
Kirk can join.
Last year for us, it was like, for me, I think it was 6 a.m. But the race was like 3
4 a.m.
p.m. I think it was 4 a.m. for you. I was East Coast last year.
Is it still in the afternoon start? I didn't look at the start time, I guess. What are they doing this year?
Oh, I don't know.
It's a good question.
Same deal.
Because if it,
It's 11-hour time difference from Colorado, so I think it's basically probably be like 4 a.m. for us, Rich. Maybe 5 for you guys.
They're doing the same start time.
that's what we don't know.
I believe so. Yeah.
So we got that next week. What do we got in the running public?
Just put out a Training Tuesday on gift buying guide for the holidays for the runner.
Nice. What are you guys asking for
We nailed it.
for your running stockings?
I'm asking for a subscription to the Reinforced Running Training Plan.
Those are available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
What am I asking for?
Yeah. You want to hop on the Running Public Training Plan? We can gift that to you.
Nah, maybe.
Oh. Dick.
I don't know. What would I need?
I just gave you a shameless plug, and you just frickin'
Oh, I thought we
buried
were being authentic and genuinely talking about what we wanted.
me.
If we're not, or even if we are, I'm asking for a hotel weekend booked to Atlantic City next year at this time.
Heck yeah.
That's what I want.
Heck yeah. So we've been house hunting. We're under contract out in Arvada.
Oh.
So the spot that we're like, we went through an inspection. It's looking good. There's a detached garage. That was a huge selling point for me. That's a gym now. So all fitness equipment. I've been living in an apartment for a fucking decade. All I have is a kettlebell. No, my kettlebell got stolen. I don't even have a kettlebell. So fitness equipment is what I'm looking for. All of it.
Good for you. Hopefully it all goes through, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Happy.
Open.
You
Thank
can pay
you.
for it in cash with the prize money.
I'm gonna roll up in there. Yeah, open for sponsorship opportunities for fitness equipment companies.
There was some big talk you were throwing around that if you win, you were throwing your prize money on the roulette table.
They didn't have checks for us. That was out of my hands.
Okay.
That was out of my hands.
That could have been a bigger down payment, Richard.
I did have a listener come up and kind of hold me to that, and I was like, I thought I could win, but I didn't really expect to like have the money today, so I can't do it. Can't do it. All right, that's it, fellas. Nice job today.
Way to go, guys.
Thought everybody said.
Congrats, Rich.
Thanks.
Congrats again on
fellas.
the win.
Thanks, guys.
Way to go, Jack.